Welcome to Season 4 of the Empowering Women podcast, a production of the Empowering Women in Industry organization. Together, we will hear from ambitious and inspiring career women as they share their stories of success in overcoming career challenges. I'm Charlie Matthews, founder of Empowering Women, and I'm proud to introduce our host, Shannon Bumgarner from Inspired.
So hello, everyone, and welcome to another fabulous episode of the Empowering Women podcast. When this episode launches in May, it will be National Share a Story Month in the UK. So I thought this would be a wonderful time, now that we've stepped into our confidence from the last episode, to learn more about sharing our story. We have a guest here today that's going to help us do just that. So Carla Vallone is a marketing and communications strategist for business-to-business organizations and leaders who are commercializing highly technical, mission-critical products and services. And what I love about her is she has 20 plus years in public relations and marketing, and she's worked for and represented Fortune 100 companies as well as dynamic startup companies. So she's done the full gamut. In 2011, she founded her own company. It is an award-winning marketing communications agency located in Greater San Diego. And to be honest, I will let Carla pronounce it later because I did not want to screw that one up. So as an aside, really quickly, I just want to give a huge shout out to Perry Richmond. She was on our podcast earlier and she facilitated the introduction with Carla. So thank you, Perry. And welcome Carla to the podcast.
Thank you, Shannon. So great to be here. Yep, and that's Portavoce PR. That's the name of the company, and you nailed it. Otherwise, I'll tell you what the story is behind that name. Yeah. There's a story behind everything. There's a story behind that name.
Yeah, I didn't want to get that one wrong. Yeah. So Carla, as our listeners know, my favorite place, because I think it really helps us get to know you, is share your story with us. So tell us how you got to this point in your life and in your career.
So yeah, I started way back in high school in journalism, working on the school paper, the yearbook, etc. And that just really carried on through my whole life. After school, high school, I went to New York University where I majored in mass communications and minored in journalism. And then soon, within about a year of being in the city, I started interning at public relations firm. And that's really kind of where I found my love of and marrying that storytelling with business and working with other brands to tell their story. And that's really the space that I've been in just about since. After school, then I worked for some of the biggest, at the time it was called Burson Marsteller, now called Burson Conan Wolf PR agency, worked on a lot of consumer brands, food, which is one of my favorite subjects, McCormick Spices, Sunbeam, and Kellogg. And then I did transition over to the corporate side and worked in Kellogg cereal in marketing. And then from there, really after that, took a turn when I moved to San Diego into technology and started working for Segway, which was a crazy and exciting company to work with because it was so innovative, different, new. And that was a great experience. And that's also where I started to learn about business to business communications, which was very new and different to me. And from there went also to Qualcomm, where that B2B expertise continued, and then started my own agency in 2011, Portavoce Public Relations.
I cannot believe you went from food to Segway. I mean, that's a story in and of itself. I'm really curious. How did you find Segway, or they found you? Like, how did that happen?
Burson Marsteller represented Segway at that time. And I was working in the San Diego office of Burson Marsteller, and the founder of Segway, Dean Kamen, also has a nonprofit that's in robotics competition First, which now is a really, really, really well-known brand. So at the time, they needed somebody to cover First, so that people wouldn't try to get to Segway through First. So I was covering First and doing PR for First, and that's how I got introduced to the awesome people at Segway. So yeah, but California very much known for tech, and so when I came to California, that's kind of, I think, also what instigated the turn into technology.
That is just so fun. Food to segue. That's got to be in your in your story branding somewhere. I love that. So that's got to be a great like introduction at a cocktail hour or something. Now that we might be able to finally do those again.
Well, really, and the reason was that, I mean, Segway was a consumer brand. The
Oh, good
goal
point.
was to sell that to people, but it also then became a B2B brand because police started to use Segways for their policing, and so we were marketing on both sides of the house.
Oh, I bet that was fun. I'm like a little jealous, Carla. I think I want to go work at Segway for a little while. But as I mentioned on the outset, just really to repeat really quickly, May is National Share a Story Month in the United Kingdom. And I'm taking a little bit of quote off their website here, but it's an annual celebration of the power and magic of storytelling. So it's really more for the children because it's organized by the Federation of Children's Book Groups. And it's a wonderful opportunity, according to the website, for families to share stories and books to read and write together. But what really pulled me in, Carla, was I think that we're going to take a little different spin on it. It's how we share our stories as adults. I think that's so important. So I'd like to start with the foundation. Why tell your story at all?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, storytelling is a way to attract other like-minded people and really flag in the world, what's important to you, what your goals are, and it helps you achieve those goals. It also creates a foundation to ask for what you want and to and ask for what kind of jobs you want, positions you want, and to make an ask of other people, whether you want them to buy something or use you as a consultant. You really have to first be able to tell your story and why you're a fit for that before you can ever ask someone else to do that. And then lastly, fourth thing is that storytelling can help you build your reputation and your authority around a certain subject matter or around a certain skill. And so it's really those four different things, both either professionally or personally, but that why to do it. And it's very uncomfortable. Telling your own story is really uncomfortable for most people.
Oh my goodness, is it
Whether you're in
ever?
the
Go ahead.
corporate world or personal world. Yeah. So it does help to have a framework, which I know we're going to talk about today, which is you talked about Perry Richmond earlier, and she created a framework called Your Brand Promise where people can use for their own leadership brand or their personal brand in order to tell their story. And when you it is so intimidating, and frankly, that's why I have a job. That's why public relations exists, is because telling your own story is hard, and it's actually far easier to have someone else tell your story. But then we can kind of concede that agency or concede the control of that story to someone else if we're not telling our own. But the 21st century is the era of telling your own story because now there's all the channels where we can do our own talking for ourselves. And that's huge. So that's kind of what got us here today.
I think what's so funny, I've never thought about it, is it helps you ask for what you want. I've never really thought about it in that way. I know Perry taught me a really strong message through her program is it helps you show up in the right places and make the decision of where you want to spend your time. And it's definitely done that for me. But I've never thought about it. It helps you ask for what you want because you're able to articulate who you are and where you're going. So you're right. It does help you be more clear about what you want. And a lot of leaders I talk to, quite frankly, many of them women, I have a lot of conversations about, I don't know what's next for me. And I'm like, well, you really got to think about that, right? What is your story? What are you looking for next?
Yeah, and it's a little bit about the laws of attraction. So this last December, I was at a holiday party with all the women in the neighborhood. And a woman who was relatively new to our neighborhood sat down next to me and she said, when we were looking for a new house and looking for a new neighborhood to live in, we drove by your house and we saw the pride flag that you had hanging from your house. And we saw the Black Lives Matter sign that you had in your yard. And I turned to my husband and said, this is a neighborhood where good people live. And that was so powerful to me. It gave me the goosebumps. It still gives me the goosebumps because a lot of times we do things to tell our story, visually, like a flag or a sign, with words, with video now, or a podcast like this. And you kind of wonder, what is it? Does it matter? Am I getting through? What does it mean? And here, that was really special to me. That's something that I had done to tell my story and to sort of, signpost what was important to me. someone saw that and it meant something to them and it made them feel welcome. It made them feel they were in the right place. And then it was that connection. That's the reason she sat down next to me at the party, right? She knew we had sort of a personal connection. So that same lesson can be learned both professionally or personally, because it brings people together and says, okay, that's the person I'm looking for.
That's really interesting. I had somebody also, to your point on this, say to me, and it was, I post especially a lot recently on LinkedIn. I've started being more and more personal in my post about my own story. And she said to me, totally unprompted, I really enjoy your LinkedIn post. I know when you put something out there, it's going to be really personal and relevant. So I really love what you're saying. I think what we're saying is similar. It's just different examples.
Yeah, so you're building that reputation that you're an authentic storyteller. People trust that. Some interesting news has come out over the last couple of months. Edelman, which is a humongous communications and PR firm worldwide, has been monitoring people's trust for 20 plus years. And right now, people's trust is at an all-time low. The predominant feeling people have of government, of news, is distrust. And so that authenticity and storytelling is becoming more and more important. And this will blow your mind. The most trusted source right now among the public are businesses. That blows my mind.
Oh my gosh, like I had to take a second. Like I was actually rendered speechless for a second.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That people actually find companies right now more trustworthy than the government, than the news, because unfortunately, misinformation and bad news has really skewed people. So it's a very interesting time with storytelling and how we build that trust in ourselves and in other people.
I love that, Carl. Thank you for sharing that really personal story about your neighborhood. I think that's really meaningful. So we talked a little bit about the why and some of our own experiences with telling our story. So I think you alluded to this earlier. So what are some of the tools and tricks that we can use to effectively weave our story?
So using that structure that I talked about from your brand promise about creating a personal or leader brand, it's really a series of questions that you first need to, sit down with a pad of paper or in front of your laptop and start to answer. Who are you? What makes you special? These sound like kindergarten questions, but it's really, some of these basic questions. Who am I? What am I good at? What makes me special? How do I do the things that I do that in a way that's different or more meaningful than someone else? How have I built my specialty? How have you done that? You start to ask those questions, and you can also use another technique called the 5 whys. Okay, why is that? And why is that? And keep, getting yourself down to the root of what you're good at, how you built that specialty, and so forth. So first you start with that sort of brainstorming.
Which, to your point, I've seen that stump an entire room of leaders, those questions.
Right. So then you kind of go, as you build that story, again, I am a kind of person that I always start with the written word. So, I'm sure if you were Gen Z, you might just be like, heck, I'm going to go and start audio recording. My 9-year-old doesn't even text. She just talks into her phone. And I find that so odd. Start with where you're comfortable with. Could be just talking into your phone microphone on your phone. It could be writing things down. I always start with the written word. I also think it's a great place to start because then it's a great springboard for doing a video, doing a podcast. You and I today even, we prepared using the written word to prepare for our audio and video interview. So as you build that story, then add in the vibrant language to explain, what your passions are and why you're passionate about it. Definitely use real life examples and anecdotes that you've experienced or the learnings throughout your career or your life that led to where you're at. And then third party proof points. You can find third party proof points whether you're trying to promote a lifestyle company or a business company. But you want to show your story is relevant. Why am I talking about this now? Why am I talking about mental health for adolescents? Well, because it's, adolescents after the pandemic are suffering from mental health problems. So that's why I'm talking about today. And the CDC is reporting on that. So that really helps, again, build that authority and why you're talking about what you're talking about while it's relevant to your audience now. So those are the things that you want to pull together to start building your story out.
Yeah, I love that last one. I think I'm learning that more and more. So as the audience knows, I'm very passionate about women in STEM and elevating the careers of women in STEM. It's one of the reasons you're hearing my voice today on this podcast. And I've started to learn not to be shy about it. And to your point, put it in the context of what does it look like for women engineers today? To your point, what are the statistics? How does this link into how companies need to leverage diversity for innovation, for financial performance, right? To your point, it's building that context around it. I love that. I hadn't thought about that being part of the story, but it really is. And to your point on the personal side, I think you pull in that this is my lived experience. And not only is it needed, but it's part of a lived experience. So I think you're right. It does make it really authentic. I didn't connect those dots to you, laid it out so nicely, but very, very true.
Definitely.
Yeah. So like once you have that story, and listeners, if you're working on this, it's going to take you a while. So don't get frustrated. If you get frustrated, just walk away and come back. Cause I can tell you that first part of how are you special? What does that mean? That's going to take you a while and you're going to be super uncomfortable. So fair warning label on that one.
Yeah. Right. I mean, and keep this in mind. There are different stories for different, environments. And so you're not trying to throw everything into your story. You do have to think about, what is my goal? Is my goal professional? Am I trying to get a raise, a new job, a board seat? Okay, I need a story for that. That's relevant to my professional career and my experiences and where I'm going there. Or, have I started a new business and I'm selling something on e-commerce and I really want to be selling something? It has to be relevant to that. Or some things can be completely personal. What if I just want to advocate for women in STEM, which is a shared mission you and I both have? And so I want to volunteer with an association that helps, train women into STEM careers. Maybe there's no financial reason for that. It's just, that's what my advocacy platform is. And then I would want to build a story for that. That might be separate than my career, separate, than my personal. I mean, it's all interwoven, so it all has to work together. And it certainly can't conflict. You can't be acting one way and saying another. But so I guess when we talk about storytelling and telling my stories overwhelming, okay, one way you can narrow it down is, what's my goal? And just start with a story for that specific goal.
Yeah, I like that, because it can be really overwhelming. But I never really thought about that either. They're probably slightly different. To your point, they have to align, because people can figure that out pretty quickly. People have good crap detectors, and they can figure that out pretty quickly if they don't align. So once you have your story, there's so many avenues to publish it more broadly. So obviously you do this every day for B2B commerce. So what are some creative, engaging ways that we can do this personally to publish our story?
Yeah. The good news is that you don't need to build anything from scratch to tell your story. You don't have to have a website. You don't have to build one, which is a complete nightmare. All these tools now exist for the taking and for free. So if it's professional, you can post on LinkedIn. You can blog on LinkedIn. If it's and all of these different social tools that we now have at our disposal, you can pretty much get to any audience you want. But that is the next step in your story, is that once you've identified what your objective is for why you want to build the story and what you're trying to achieve, you've built the story. Okay, who are the people that I need to hear this? Are they professional? I mean, is it just my own boss and I'm going to write an email to him or her to tell him or her why I want to be considered for this new job? And that's why I need my story. I mean, it could be, you can sometimes go straight direct to the source, but am I perhaps a woman's trying to build a reputation in a specific field? to get in, and she wants to get a different job or just to, escalate and be known. LinkedIn is a great place for that. But maybe there's another woman who's trying to start a small business of selling something on e-commerce. Well, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram might be a better place to tell that story. So you do need to know without overcomplicating it, where do your people live that you're trying to get the message out to? And then think about that. And then, of course, there are many ways to communicate a story. They say picture is worth 1,000 words, and it certainly is. And these days, the picture complements your 1,000 words. So they always go together. Your words will be read if there's a picture there. So you want to think about, okay, how am I going to amplify my storytelling with photos, with video, or like we're doing today, an audio podcast or so forth. So there's where am I going, and then how am I going to tell that story? And you really want to do it in as many different ways as you can. But again, one mistake I often see with people when they say they want to start sort of their own personal brand, and is they bite off more than they can chew. They think they have to be on every single social platform. I'm laughing because I'm raising
my hand for those of you watching me on video. Yeah.
Yeah. They feel like I need to be on every single, even brands do this in companies. Okay. We need to be on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Okay. Well, let's ask ourselves, like, if you want to be on Instagram or Pinterest, you better have a lot of photos to share. Oh, I don't really have a lot of photos. Then that's probably not the place for you. Are you a word person? Are you a video person? Are you cool with sharing photos? You've got to have the content that matches that channel. And start where you're comfortable and start where the people are that you want to influence, and then build from there. I went to a great brands conference this week because I really pride myself in keeping up to date with insights from B2B and B2C marketing, and a very, pretty successful 100-store chain. It was Press Juice, sort of talked about, like, we're not doing great on all social media outlets right now telling our story. We had to get the social media sites we already had right, and then we're going to build from there. So even big brands, have learned this lesson, because when you try to do too much, the worst thing you go do is, one of my biggest pet peeves or signs is that, an outlet, like a media outlet, isn't doing well, as I go to their blog and, oh, this blog hasn't been updated in 8 months. Clearly is this even defunct? Is this even real? So, keeping it fresh is important as well. And so you want to just take on what you think you can manage and set a goal for yourself there.
Yeah, I'm going to focus a little bit on LinkedIn because of the professional nature of the podcast.
Okay.
One of the things that I've sort of my pet peeve with LinkedIn, I get people have families and lives that they need to go live, but is a LinkedIn profile that's not updated. And I'm like, you don't update it like when you're going to go get the job. I'm not saying you got to post every week or maybe even that often, but at a minimum, keep your profile updated. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, or any tips and tricks you've seen or that you've used in LinkedIn?
Absolutely. So there's a couple great things to think about that. And, also with that, your brand promise framework, storytelling comes in different lengths also. You've got your elevator speech, which is, I met somebody in the hallway or an elevator, or that doesn't happen all that often lately, but, and I need to tell them in 5 minutes what I do. Similar with LinkedIn, you need to have that description up at the top. You need to have even higher level sort of headlines about who you are and what you want to be, a very short sort of elevator description of it. I see people all the time who just don't have a LinkedIn profile. I mean, that person clearly isn't looking to change jobs or looking for a different opportunity, and that's fine. I mean, some people aren't. They're happy with where they are. I often have to write, or in our business, our team writes bios for spokespeople. That's where I go to find it. And, but it's an easy way to do it. And it's a heck of a lot easier to keep your LinkedIn updated than even a resume, because it takes a lot less thinking. So I think that is important, keeping it updated. I mean, I think what's even more important though, is that LinkedIn right now is, like I said, a very easy and approachable way to start your storytelling. And basically that can be your channel. it does the work for you. So now LinkedIn is doing 3 things that I love, and this is 3 things anybody can do. One is that you can actually publish, and this isn't posting, and sometimes people don't understand the terminology of the difference, but you can publish your own articles on your LinkedIn page, which is what I'm saying is that basically can be your personal / professional blog, your own individual professional blog. Second, you can now start your own newsletter through LinkedIn, and then you can ask people on LinkedIn or off LinkedIn to follow that newsletter, and that will blast those blogs outbound to people's inboxes. That's amazing. That's convenient, because building an email list is very difficult. And then 3, now LinkedIn has video. So you can do, video discussions on there. So you can, if professional is where this audience is interested in building their profile, you can kind of live there all day long. There's other research you can do if you want to dig deeper again about, okay, where is your business like selling, or where are your people? I find out about a fair amount of professional events on Facebook. Because it can target me really highly. And then some industries are known to be very active on Twitter, like the medical industry. Doctors are all over Twitter.
I did not know that. Interesting.
Yeah. So, a little bit digging and testing can find that. So I didn't know that either, but yeah, it makes sense, right? Doctors are on the floor, working with patients. They're not sitting at a laptop. They don't work. They're not on LinkedIn, they're on Twitter making, short updates or reading news, things like that. So again, it all kind of complicates it a little more, but, the place to start, is definitely LinkedIn is a great place to start.
It's really funny that you say that. The one thing I want to learn more about is I'm sure you know this, there's a creator function. I think it's been on LinkedIn for about a year now. I'm a little slow to adopt. I just figured it out like about a month or so ago. But one of the things you can do is on your picture or a place, I think you can put a video on there. So if you're up for short videos, which I'm still getting brave with that,
yeah,
you can do that. And even a small thing, you can put, you want people to pronounce your name correctly. Say you're somebody who's got a really tough name to pronounce. You can do it on your phone. You just click that part of the LinkedIn. And I think those are little fun things that you can do to build your brand.
Smart. I did see that. That's great. I need to do that obviously for Portavoce PR, because people are always asking me how you say it.
Yeah, exactly. So we talked a lot about our brand and how we use it. One of the other ones is that, we're a huge community of women here at Empowering Women in Industry. And how can we use our brand to amplify the voices of others?
Great. That's really also something that I'm really passionate about. And there's a few ways that I think we can all do that. One, we're all telling our own stories. We're all responsible to tell our own stories, but we can amplify other stories that, again, if we have other like-minded people like you and I want to help promote more women in STEM. So maybe if I'm writing a piece or content about women in STEM, I might in my piece refer to a piece you wrote, and say, and amplify what your viewpoint is, or complement what your viewpoint is. So I think that's one way we can, if you're writing a piece, you can cross-link, cross-share from some other people's. It just needs to make sure to be, attributed. I think another way is that if you consider yourself a good content creator, a good storyteller, and you want to do good with that and put that talent to good, all nonprofits and philanthropic efforts thrive on storytelling. So if you want, joining a women-focused organization or a nonprofit, you can put that talent to work to amplify those voices of women or women in STEM, either from like a professional organization or a nonprofit that might be advocating. So I think that's a great way to go out and amplify other people's voices. Let me think. I had a third. I think the third one was for people like me, and this is sort of a mindful goal that I've taken on for myself this year, is that if we're professional content creators, and we want to amplify other people's stories, it is our responsibility, again, to live our own mission and to go out and, ask our clients, have you invited people from the different ERGs in your company to participate in this storytelling? Do we have representation of all different kinds of ethnicities in our storytelling, of sexualities? And so I've taken on my goal this year, and moving forward, is to ask that of my clients. Are we telling? Is everybody look alike with all these stories we're telling, or are we getting different perspectives? And so I think that's a way in our daily work and our paid jobs that we can help amplify other voices as well, and a really important one.
Yeah, I love that last one. I'm a huge D&I nerd, learning so much. I'm still a baby, but it's a passion of mine. And I think for the listeners, one small way you can do this in the workplace is if you have a friend and you're in a room that he or she is not in, and you know their story, and you just want to, whatever, obviously you have to share what's appropriate. But I think it's always powerful to say, oh, I think this person has this story, this background, and I really think you two should connect. So it's one way to elevate their story by sharing it. And then you can also potentially facilitate a connection for them. So I think that's a really easy way to do it in the workplace.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people will go and work with HR, and that's, a great place to start. But why not also go out to, the resource groups, the different, the Latinx resource group, the women's resource group, to find those stories of different representation.
Yeah. I'm going to go one final place before we talk about your firm. One of the stories I think is the hardest to tell, it sort of gets back to the individual one, is when you're looking for a raise or a new job or a promotion. I think the pay question is probably the hardest, but just that is a general rule, right? And let's just say that your goal is either to get a promotion, like the job maybe that's already out there, maybe you just want to be promoted and there's that goal, aspirational goal, or a pay. You have that goal. Any thoughts on, and I'm catching a lot of guard here, but any thoughts on how to have that conversation? It's just such a tough one.
I'm glad you brought that up, because the first thing is I want to encourage all women to make the ask. Absolutely make the ask for a new job, for your existing job. We've got to all get better about advocating and making the ask. I've interviewed so many women here at my firm, and a few men. Every man I ever interviewed asked for more money. One of the dozens of women I interviewed asked for more money. So it's something that I do, and no one's, in any kind of job, babysitting, a real, your long-term professional, no one's just going to give you money for free,
nope.
Just, they're not going to volunteer it. They've got budgets, they've got P&Ls. So you have to ask. I think the storytelling work and the framework that we've already talked about really works for that, because you're creating a fact-based story. And so I would say my number one advice, and this is also sort of a tip in general for storytelling, there's a story and there's a rant. And if your story becomes too emotional, it becomes a rant. So of course, obviously, in asking for salaries, we want to be really fact-based. What are your performance? What were the ways it was measured? And then still using those third-party resources, go on salary.com, do the research, I'm sure we all just have to ask each other or try to find out, what other people are making. I know women who for a fact knew when they went to interview for a job, that they were making 40% less. And I thought what was interesting when this woman shared this with me was that she said, when I went and asked for this job, I told them right up front, I'm going to insist and require pay parity. I'm not quite sure
Good for her.
So I also liked that combination of saying, putting it back on, to that employer, like, this is what my standards are. This is what my expectations are. But, I'm definitely doing the research. But I've had a lot of younger people work for me and then maybe gone on to someone else, ask for advice. How do I do that? How do I ask for more money? And it really is to, talk about what you've achieved, those facts, stay in the fact-based space. And also do your research about what other people are being paid, on both genders, and at different agencies, for instance, or different companies. I mean, that's what's it's hard to ask your own colleagues, but maybe if that's where networking is really important, right? Okay, go ask someone at a neighboring company in the same field. Hey, what are people making over there? It's not really appropriate to be asking your own peers, maybe, what are their salary points, but you can do that. So that's also where building that network of other people where you can go and ask. I mean, when I think about like my own rates here or billing rates, or I ask other agency owners in different markets, what are you charging? What are you paying? My husband, who's also a marketer, likes to call that, cul-de-sac research, where you just go out into the cul-de-sac and ask other people for their opinions and thoughts.
That's awesome. I think I love what you said, because it's really taking your story and framing it around a database value proposition. Like, this is what I brought to you. This is what I brought to the team. So I love that piece of it. I also love the benchmarking piece. So if you know somebody that will give you a guess, but I love where you ended. So if there are female entrepreneurs out there, I'm in a class right now and I'm seeing female and male entrepreneurs, but the women in the group tend to have the worst time with being more aggressive in their pricing. So, and it's a female business coach running the program, but it's really interesting that women are like, is it really worth that much? And the funny part is they want to over research it almost. And she's like, you're just starting out, just start, right? We're going to test the market. We're going to figure it out. So I guess I love where you ended it. It applies to not only professionals that are within a business, but as well as entrepreneurs that are trying to set their rates and packages.
Absolutely. I mean, ask for what you're worth. And then, like you said at the beginning, when you know what your story is, you know what your brand is and your goals are, it helps you make those decisions, what you're going to spend your time on or what job you're going to take. And I recently had a personal friend say, at the beginning, I had a job interview. Oh, this sounds great. People have been here for a really long time. That people are really nice at this company. She went and interviewed. And it was the same exact salary that she was getting now. And I said, yep, nope, there's the quick answer. Done. Good interview practice. But you're not going to take a job that doesn't match your value and your worth. This is someone who had, just achieved her secondary master's and all these things that would have, definitely obviously brought value for increase. So, you set that boundary, and that can really help make those decisions about what you're going to continue to spend your time on.
Yeah, I love that. Well, speaking of entrepreneurs, where I want to end our conversation today is around your agency. Maybe tell us the story of how you got here with your agency, and then how people could potentially reach out to you or get involved with your agency.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, well, like I said, when I was just sort of, I think the story behind Portavoce PR is it really grew organically. I've met so many different people and then different companies that I've worked with. They were, especially my friends at Segway, were very entrepreneurial. And I had taken some time off when I had my young first daughter, and they just started all calling me around the same time, strangely, hey, I can't afford a big PR agency. Could you help me out? And it was really through working with those former, colleagues that, and then also people like Perry and I knew each other from, 1998, and we were
okay.
Cube
You guys
neighbors.
Go way back. Okay.
Yeah, we were Cube neighbors. So I know that, for us women too, for all people, that's why that long-term and short-term networking is so important. And so I really built it from there, and that specialty of business to business took hold. And, our expertise is marketing communications, and we help those companies tell their stories about their products, their people, and their solutions, so that they can really break down barriers, right? If you're using methods in manufacturing or in healthcare space that are old fashioned, it's hard to get people to try new things.
Oh my gosh, is it ever?
Yeah. And so storytelling is a huge part of that. Storytelling breaks down those barriers for brands, helps people understand why they should try robotics or AI or a new piece of manufacturing commitment that, or equipment that's, IoT. And so that's really a lot of what we do, as well as help leaders tell their stories, because storytelling for leadership is incredibly important because the value of senior leaders and CEOs is up to 50% or more of a company's brand can be attached to the brand of their CEO. So what that leader in a company is saying and doing and how they're telling their story has huge impact on a company and its value.
Which is amazing. Like when Perry shared some of that quite some time ago, I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. I had no idea.
Yeah, and now seeing that new Edelman research where like and as an employee, that leader is, incredible. Like the most trusted person they're going to hear company news from is absolutely, because they no longer really trust what they see in the newspaper. They don't know if what they're seeing online is authentic or on social. So that is becoming even more and more important in leadership communications. Yeah.
One
so
final question before we end. Where did the name come from?
Yes, so Portavoce is actually an Italian word that means spokesperson. But also when you break it down with how it's spelled, it means to bring the voice. Porta means bring, voce means voice. So that's really where we started the company, is like, helping people find their voice and take it out to their audiences. It's still what we do today, 10 years later.
Well, that was a fantastic place to end, to bring your voice. I love that. So where can people find your voice? Out on social media or website?
Luckily, our handle's the same everywhere. Portavoce PR. That's PORTAVOCE PR on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. You can find me, Carla Vallone, on LinkedIn as well. And we love to help people tell their stories. So please reach out.
Yeah, please reach out. She's wonderful. Thank you so much, Carla. I know you're very, very busy. I really appreciate you spending some time with me today and bringing your voice to the Empowering Women podcast. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity, and it was fun.
All right, guys, we will see you again in June. It is hard for me to say that already in 2022. So bye, everyone. Talk to you soon.